listening to Sweep the League.
Hey, this is George Iceman Gervin, and you're listening to Sweep the League Radio.
Okay, so NBA talk coming out here is this. First off, before we get into De'Aaron Fox talk, Mike Brown gets fired. And I don't necessarily agree with it. I'm kind of talking the same way that, a lot of other guys, a lot of coaches were echoing the stuff. But before we get your thoughts on it, Derek, we're going to go to our video here of Mike Malone and his reaction to Mike Brown being fired.
Thoughts on the firing of Mike Brown?
Awful. Yeah, awful. And the reason I say that, Matt, is so we're going into a meeting this afternoon. And, the good thing about me is that I'm not on social media. I'm not aware of what's going on outside these walls sometimes. I've had an office with no windows for 10 years. It's probably taken off 6 years of my life. And I go into the meeting, and the coaches say, "Did you hear about Mike Brown?" And I said, "Why? What happened?" And they said he got fired. And at first, I was really shocked and surprised. And then I caught myself. I said, why am I shocked and surprised? For two reasons. One, because as an NBA head coach, ultimately, you're going to get the blame. When they win, it's going to go to Sabonis and Fox. When you lose, it's going to go to Mike Brown. That's the way it works. And two, who he works for. So I'm not surprised that Mike Brown got fired, because I got fired by the same person. And what really pissed me off about it was the fact that they lost last night, 5th game in a row, I believe. Tough loss, fouling a jump shooter. They have practice this morning. He does his post-game media, and he's in his car going to the airport to fly to L.A., and they call him on the phone. No class, no balls. That's what I'll say about that.
There you have it. Mike Malone commenting on the firing of Mike Brown, which I obviously didn't agree with it. This is the thing. When you fired Mike Brown, the Kings are struggling this year. Let's not beat around the bush. They are struggling. They were expected to be at least a top 6 team in the Western Conference this season. You added DeMar DeRozan, which I remember saying that's a terrible move for the Kings. You were perfect the way you were last year. You needed a couple more role players. You didn't need another ball dominant player in DeMar DeRozan. But, the addition of DeMar DeRozan to me wasn't a great fit once I looked at it. But again, Mike Brown being fired, I get it. You're struggling, but Mike Malone's right. If you're winning, the players are getting all the hoopla. But if you're losing, the first person they point to is the coach. And at this point, Mike Brown gone from being the Sacramento Kings coach, Derek.
Well, I wasn't crazy about the move. I didn't think it was warranted. You're talking about a guy who was the coach of the year just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so things didn't go well. So far this season, I believe they're like 13 and 19 now, I think, after losing to the Lakers. And I hate to see him take the brunt of the blame. And, for me, De'Aaron Fox, I believe, had a lot to do with it. But I got to say the saddest part, Rudy, is they didn't have to do that man like that. He deserves a lot better. He was a very good assistant coach under Steve Kerr with the Golden State Warriors. To have him meet with the guys, he met with the guys individually, and he's done that all the time. That's what he does. So he meets with De'Aaron, as everyone saw, and he had a conversation with DeMar DeRozan, Trey Lyles, and those guys. And so they let the man run the full practice. They have practice. Nothing happened. He's still the coach. He talks to De'Aaron Fox, and then De'Aaron walks on his way. They wait until this man is on his way to the airport before he gets to go get on his flight, before they call him and tell him that he's no longer the coach. I think that was cowardly, just like Mike Malone felt. It was very unnecessary, very unprofessional. And I hate to see Mike Brown lose his job like that, but the good thing is he will land on his feet. But Sacramento, the ownership, Vivek Renoviv or Renoviv, whatever his name, and the people that he have in charge, they should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, I agree. That was a terrible move by the Sacramento Kings right there, the way that they did it. I mean, at what point there? I mean, you were a player in the NBA, and you've been around a lot of NBA players. You've got family that play in the NBA. At what point I understand that coaching has a coach has coaching flaws. It may not work. The system may not work. Your coaching style may not be the best fit for the team, but all he was doing was holding his star player accountable, which I thought was okay. But now it seems like if you hold certain players accountable, then you're gone. I mean, have we really gotten to that point in the game?
It looks like it, but the sad thing in that play is what did Mike Brown do wrong? He had the guys prepared to play defense. Mm-hmm. You're down, you're up, 3 points? So the last thing you want to do is give up a 3.
Yeah.
So you should not be closing out like De'Aaron Fox was doing, and then he ends up fouling the guy, and it becomes a 4-point play. That's not coaching. That's the players. And De'Aaron Fox needs to be held accountable for that, not Mike Brown. And to see Mike Brown take the blame for that, man, it was crazy. I mean, these aren't kids. These are pros.
Exactly.
Why would he get fired for telling De'Aaron Fox that those kind of plays can't happen? Maybe that's why they're losing right now, is because you have sensitive players who don't want to take accountability for themselves. And it is also not Mike Brown's fault that they brought in DeMar DeRozan. That falls on the general manager.
Yeah.
I love DeMar DeRozan. He is not a good fit for that team. And so you're blaming the wrong guy. I know they say if you're winning, who gets the credit? You heard them. If they winning, Fox gets the credit and Sabonis. If they're losing, the coach gets the credit, the bad credit. And I just hate to see it be that way, man. But, hey, that's the new era. That's where we are today.
You know, the funny thing is we talked about Mike Brown possibly coming back to San Antonio. If there was ever a successor for Pop, I would circle Mike Brown's name. But because the rumors are swirling that Spurs are trying to get a package together to get De'Aaron Fox, may not be a good look to bring Mike Brown back if you're bringing De'Aaron Fox into San Antonio. So I think Mike Brown lands somewhere off the top of your head. Is there a team that you might see Mike going to benefit, because I really don't know a team offhand other than a young team like maybe Orlando or something, being an assistant with them. I just don't know where else he would land.
You know exactly where he'll land and where he should and where he will. Steve Kerr has had lots of problems since Mike Brown left that bench. So to me, common sense says if he accepts the job, I'm sure they're going to reach out to him. He goes back to Golden State, and that's where he'll finish the year. And I hope he goes back there and, helps them. And then they turn that into him being a coach again in the NBA, head coach, because he deserves to be a head coach. And for me, it'll be 100% it'll be Golden State.
Golden State would be a good move for Mike Brown. I mean, he would definitely help Steve Kerr and that team if he was to go back over there. Appreciate Tim Gonzalez and also Ray Dean in here over 2,000, the transfer portal. Yeah, that's something I got to get into here in just a little bit with Derek as far as the transfer portal. Ray Dean says Lakers are on fire. Told you so. 40 more wins. AD is MVP. I can't go that far with AD on the MVP thing, but I do want to talk a little bit. Yeah, I love Ray and Tim always in here giving us.
Ray already got started. I'm just kidding.
All right, man. He's got to end 2024 with a bang. He's going to start 2025 with a bang when it comes to Lakers talk, man. MVP talk. I want to get into De'Aaron Fox here a little bit, but MVP talk for the league. It's crazy, Derek. I woke up this morning and I thought, what are we going to talk about tonight on Sweep? One thing I want to mention was the MVP talk in the NBA, because not really halfway through the season yet. I mean, you're talking Giannis is MVP caliber. Jokic is putting up MVP numbers. SGA still trucking along. But is it crazy to believe that I can easily put one Victor Wembanyama in the top 4 for MVP? And I get the losing record, which is going to cost him everything when it comes to votes. But if you look at it, the kid's been unstoppable. And I mean, for me, he's climbing that MVP ladder, at least discussion wise.
Rudy, MVP is about what you do making your team better, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not necessarily about stats. So if you look at where the Spurs were projected, even including you and myself, and look at where they are now, if they continue on the path they're on, they're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
And so who would be the main reason for that? The catalyst, the guy by the name of Victor Wembanyama, who's been on a 30-point tear lately. And I won't even get into the block shots and the altered shots and all of that. You saw what he did in New York. So if you ever want to be in the MVP conversation, where do you need to shine? Madison Square Garden. Yeah. And what did he do? Even though they lost by one, Mikal Bridges had 41. But what was the conversation mostly about? Victor Wembanyama. And, the guy's shooting 15, 16 threes a game, but I believe that game he shot like a 37, 38% clip. So, yeah, for me, it's no question he would be in the MVP voting. If I got Shea in there and I got Tatum and Joker, the Joker, Victor has to be my fourth guy.
Yeah, I have him at 4 right now, which might surprise some Spurs fans, maybe surprise a couple of NBA fans. But I think Victor right now is 4. I mean, your top 3, like I mentioned, for me would be Giannis, Jokic, and Shea. So I would probably have Victor 4. I think Tatum should get a lot of love as well. Definitely
put Tatum 5.
Yeah, I would definitely put Tatum 5.
Put Tatum 5.
Tatum definitely is
Victor 4.
But, I mean, you got to get with the record. If the Spurs can somehow get into the playoffs, then it has to be serious consideration. Now, the only person I feel he can't overcome would be Jokic. That's just, I mean, he's putting up ungodly numbers right now, and he's just filling the stat line. So is the possibility of him putting up these numbers for the rest of the year enough to get over Joker if he gets the Spurs in the playoffs?
Right now, if you go by what they're doing for their team, Victor is elevating his team more than Jokic.
Yeah,
Jokic just won a championship, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And if you look at Denver, they've been struggling this year. I know people want to put it all on Jamal Murray or whatever, but there's been more. Guys have not been living up to what they're supposed to. Aaron Gordon's been in and out of the lineup. Michael Porter Jr. has been inconsistent. They brought in Russell Westbrook, of course. You have Christian Brown in the starting lineup. They still haven't figured out what they're going to do with Strother and Watson. So, they're not the team people expected them to be. And the Spurs have over-exceeded already. I mean, you and I said, 30 wins, 34, 35 wins. The way they're playing right now, they're headed to 40 and possibly more, because I see Victor even getting better in the second half of the season. And so, yeah, man, the Spurs have a lot of things to be happy about, and they'd be really happy. I hate to say this because I'm a Chris Paul fan, CP3, but if you were able to get a 27-year-old guy by the name of De'Aaron Fox, the season changes for the better right away.
Yeah, that's exactly the lead-in we're going into here on Sweep the League with Hall of Famer Derek Irvin and Rudy Campos Sr. Tim's asking, Derek, would you so happen to score 60 points in Madison Square Garden if given that opportunity, man?
Well, I played 20 minutes in the game and I had 24. So, yeah, if I had the opportunity, we're talking about Patrick Ewing and those guys. So today I'm getting to take open shots, basically, or drive to the bucket with minimal contact. I'm last name Gervin, Tim. I've scored 60 on several occasions, and I don't think it would have been any different in the NBA if I was given the opportunity.
I don't think you would have any trouble getting
Jalen Brunson had 55, and I know I could outscore Jalen Brunson, so
they make it happen.
There it is.
You can do. You can make it happen. That's all we got to tell people. You will make it happen. There's no doubt about that. Talking to Derek Garvin, Rudy Campos, your Sweep the League. Be sure to go to our YouTube page. Go search Sweep the League TV. Be a subscriber. 2025 is coming in very hot, very strong, Derek. And one thing that we've got to talk about, we've got to bring it back up here, obviously, is the De'Aaron Fox talk. Now, you hit it on the head, and we've been echoing it for a very long time. De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio. There's 4 teams. There's Houston, San Antonio, the Lakers, and the Heat. Now, the Lakers just pulled off a trade where they sent D'Angelo Russell, They got players in return from Brooklyn. So I feel that move kind of put them out of the De'Aaron Fox window there, because I think they're looking to bring in Jimmy Butler more than I think De'Aaron Fox for the Lakers. Now, the reason why I don't think Sacramento even considers Miami is because you've already got a Jimmy Butler style player in DeMar DeRozan. No reason to go get another DeMar DeRozan 2.0 with Jimmy Butler there. And DeMar doesn't really make sense. So to me, that leaves two teams. That means Houston, where De'Aaron is from, and San Antonio, where his wife is from. Now, football knowledge here. The last time a wife had a say so in a player going somewhere was Kirk Cousins, and we're seeing how that ended up, right? His wife's from Atlanta. They went back home, and now Kirk is benched collecting $90 million from the Atlanta Falcons until they cut him. But I feel that Houston would have to give up a lot of their youth. They don't have as many draft picks to give up. They would have to give up a lot of their youth to include Fred VanVleet. I think that makes Houston a worse team by getting De'Aaron Fox, because, I mean, what would you have? You'd probably have Sengun, Fox. You're probably going to have to give up Thompson. You're probably going to have to give up Jabari Smith. You're definitely going to probably have to give up Fred VanVleet. So, I mean, those three guys I think would be good for Sacramento, but doesn't make Houston any better, in my opinion. Now, Spurs-wise, Spurs have all the picks in the world to give up for Sacramento. And then they've got the youth. They've got some guys that can actually go into Sacramento, help them out. One of those guys is Keldon Johnson. Another one is Devin Vassell. I think one of those guys will definitely have to be involved in that kind of deal. But before we go into trade machine works and all this stuff and players, do you kind of limit the De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio, Houston as a two-team race between those two teams? Or do you maybe see somebody else coming up? Because I can't see another team coming out of it.
I don't see any other team out of the 30, just those two. And I still, for me, I told you before the season, De'Aaron Fox, I believe, still wants to be in San Antonio. I think it'll be a good fit for him. And if he had an opportunity to go play with Sengun or Victor Wembanyama, where do you think he really wants to go?
7'4". So, yeah, there's no doubt about that.
I'll tell people, I'll be honest. I had already said this to you, that I thought he would be here. And then, lo and behold, I go to a women's tournament in October. And at that women's tournament, guess who was there? De'Aaron Fox's father-in-law. Mm-hmm. So I went and had a conversation with Mr. Ray Caldwell. And I told him, Ray, first I want to say hello to you. Good to see you. And then I said, Ray, I know your son-in-law is going to be a San Antonio Spur next year. And I've already told people. So his reply was, Derek, don't put my name on that. He said, he loves San Antonio, but don't put my name on it. I said, I'm not putting your name on it. I'm putting my name on it. I'm telling people that he wants to be here. I've been told he loves it here. Of course, Reese Caldwell, his wife, Reese Caldwell Fox now, she played here at Feast in high school. And I just think it's a perfect fit for him. I would hate to see Keldon go, but this is a business, as we found out with Mike Brown and other situations. But I think the timing will be right. You got a De'Aaron Fox, a guy who still is even in his prime yet. And so you got him, and then you got Victor Wembanyama, who's 20 years old? Yeah. I just think it makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have your point guard of the future. You have the 1-2-3 combo, if you're thinking about it, with Castle, Fox, and Victor Wembanyama. Now, the fear is the fact of this. Everybody fears that Sacramento wants Castle in return. Well, let's not beat around the bush, Derek. They're going to ask for Castle. They're going to ask for him. But what Sacramento really wants, they want those draft picks. They want those 4 first-rounders that are probably going to come along with that. 2 of them more than likely going to be the 2025 pick coming up for the Spurs and the Hawks. So they definitely want those picks. They know they're going to get their picks still in the lottery if they're still continuing this path. So they may have potentially 2 picks in the lottery. I mean, there's there's so much that Sacramento could take. So for the Castle to Sacramento thing, it's not going to happen. They're going to ask, but it's not going to happen. Before we get into the trade ideas here that were worked up here, Jeff's got a question for you. He says, do you think the NBA has become stale and predictable? From Locked On Spurs, Jeff Garcia, friend of the show here.
Hey, Jeff, good evening. Yes, I think it's very predictable. That's one of the main reasons I think the ratings are down. You already know what they're going to do. There are guys taking 50. I thought when Golden State, a couple years ago, Golden State was shooting like 45 threes in the playoffs. And so I didn't know that was going to become the trend for every team. And if you look at it, I think Boston took 60 three-pointers. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, people want to see some physicality. And I hate to say this, even when Mr. Suplex isn't it Suplex when you flip the guy over like Amen Thompson did to Tyler Hero?
Yeah.
You know how many people really enjoyed that? I hate to sound like a barbarian, but people want physicality still. And so I think the ratings are down because of the threes, Jeff. I think it's hurting the game because it's either now you take the layup or even you pass up the layup and you kick it out to the three-point line, and you got four guys basically surrounding the three-point line. And I think people are tired of seeing that. They want to see guys go downhill, guys get dunked on at the rim. And that to me, that's exciting. That's old school basketball. But to me, they could find a way to kind of meet in the middle and bring back some old school, and you can still keep the way the game is played today, but just kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah, it is predictable. I mean, we can't lie. It's a very predictable game now, and I don't like it. I mean, the three-pointer, it's just getting terrible, man. I'm not. I don't.
Rudy, can I say this clear? Can I say this? And I'm not to cut you off. There's no rivalries, man.
Yeah, there's none.
Even I won't even go into teams. I want you to think. Even today, the younger people, even they see today. What is Akeem Olajuwon known for in the one playoff series against the Spurs? Taking it to who?
David Robinson.
People remember that.
Yeah.
Jordan going against Reggie Miller or whoever it may be. Those are the things people want. We want competition. We don't want to join up with your friends and all that kind of stuff today. We even seeing it in college now with the transfer portal. In high school, guys are going to join up with their friends. That's not what people want to see. People want to see competition, guys going at each other as hard as they can. We see it's hurting the All-Star game, and they changed. Now they're trying to implement new rules for the All-Star game. But, yeah, it's hurting the game overall, and I'm hoping Adam Silver and those guys and the ladies as well, they go back and put the meeting of the minds, and they find out a way to fix this, man. Rudy, have you be honest this year? And Jeff, you as well. Have you watched the entire game this year other than maybe the Spurs? I've had trouble watching entire games, and that breaks my heart because I'm a basketball diehard.
I'm a basketball diehard. I love the game of basketball, but since you put me on the spot, I will be 100% transparent. I will be 100% honest with you. I have probably watched maybe a quarter and a half of basketball the entire year. I haven't watched hardly any NBA because I can look at the box score and figure out what happened in the game. That's bad when I can go to ESPN.com, look at the box score and figured, okay, this is exactly what happened. It's terrible. And that's sad to say, but I really haven't watched any basketball at all. I've watched more college basketball than I have NBA basketball. And you're right. It's the stalemate of the game. It's just the situation and the state of the game right now. It's bad. I don't like it. I don't really like it at all. So yeah, I haven't watched very much basketball at all. Jeff is talking about Mike Brown. We did talk about it at the beginning of the show, Jeff. And yeah, I mean, they did Mike Brown pretty dirty. We did talk about that. And again, I'll be on Locked On Spurs tomorrow with Jeff. So we're talking to Spurs basketball as well as some De'Aaron Fox news as well. So we'll get into that as well. But yeah, they did do Mike Brown really, really dirty. Do you agree with the dope as model for the team? No friends on the court. 100%. I agree with that. You just heard Derek say it. I mean, there's no friends, man. You weren't friends. As much as we said, as much as Bird and Magic were rivals and friends, I mean, they were enemies for the most part. They were enemies. they understood that we have a respect for each other. We're friends, but we have a respect for each other. But when it's game time, I don't like you. I hate you. I want to beat you. I want to make sure that my team comes out on top. So, yeah, I mean, no friends on the court, Derek. That's a pretty good motto from me, to have.
Rudy, George knew Magic Johnson when Magic was like 14, 15 years old, okay?
Yeah.
And so when I watched them play in the playoffs every year against the Lakers, we couldn't get past the Midwest Finals because of who? We couldn't get to the finals. At that time, Eastern Conference. We couldn't get to the finals because of who? The Lakers.
Yep. And
George has known Magic since Magic was a teenager, but when they played the games, there was no friendship at all.
No.
They was so, I'm telling you, they put Michael Cooper and Jamal Wilkes on George because they knew he was going to be taking it to Magic. And I'm just being honest. All you got to do is go back and check it out. They never put Magic on George because they know that was going to be a rough matchup for him. They wanted Magic to have energy for the offensive end. And then you friends maybe after the game. But even back then in the playoffs, Rudy, you weren't friends the entire series.
Yeah.
We're not going to eat after the game 1, game 2. That's not happening until the series is over. And that's what I want to see today. Let's get back to competition. I don't care too much about the cursing and guys like Anthony Edwards getting fined because he's, running his mouth and all the vulgarities he's using. I want to see some knockdown, drag out basketball, not dirty basketball, but some nice competition. And I think we're really missing that.
Yeah, I think we are missing that, and that's something that we've got to get back to. Hopefully, they do get back to it at some point. Tim saying he hasn't watched any basketball. We're still in the college football, which we got to get one of our picks in later on in the show. How far will you go to your friends on the other team and then get hostile when things get hostile? Okay, how far will you go if your friend is on the other team and things get hostile on the court? I think it goes back to what we're saying. If you're friends with George and Magic are friends, but if Magic is fighting on the other side, I mean, you're fighting alongside your teammates.
How about Magic and Isaiah?
Yeah.
Cost them their friendship for years. They're just making up.
Yeah.
They were best friends, basically kissing before the game on his cheek or whatever. Yeah. And then when Magic roughed Isaiah up on the way to the basket, that fractured their friendship for a period of time. But did either guy care at that time? No. One guy was a Detroit Piston, and that's who he was down for. And the other guy was down for his Los Angeles Lakers, the guys he spent time with all season in the locker room and out on the floor and in restaurants. You had to put the friendship aside, and that's what they did, and it was good for the game.
Yeah, appreciate Jeff joining us on here on Locked On Spurs. Go check out Locked On Spurs wherever podcasts are available. Greatest Spurs podcast around. All the information you need, just check it out. Locked On Spurs. Derek, we're gonna do some trade machine stuff here. So this is gonna a couple of the trades that are coming up that we put together here, and they kind of are very similar. So let me bring these up. These are for the De'Aaron Fox, and then we got a bonus trade in there somewhere. What I'm going to show you here, but this is what I figured one of the trades would look like. This would be involving Keldon Johnson. So the one person that shines bright here is Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul, I feel, would have to be involved in this trade. Now, not because Sacramento is going to keep him. I think if he's traded, he gets bought out by Sacramento. I mean, a very team-friendly contract, doesn't cost you much. It's $10 million. But if you're bringing De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio, it makes zero sense to keep Chris Paul because you're not going to want Chris Paul to come off the bench. You're sure as hell not going to want De'Aaron Fox to come off the bench. I think having both of them in the backcourt is fine, but I think you've got to move on to get that Fox, Castle, Wemby connection going really ahead of time. And I think having Chris Paul involved here would kind of delay that a little bit. So the reason why I've got Chris Paul there is because I said it before, the Spurs are not in contention to win a title. They're going to probably release him or trade him come trade deadline. So he has an opportunity to join a contender. So right now you've got Keldon, Chris Paul, Malachi City, and then you've got your 4 first rounders in this term of the De'Aaron Fox deal. The other one is kind of similar. It's just You're taking out Sissoko. You're putting Devin Vassell in there. But again, Sacramento gets their 4 first-round picks. I think 4 first-rounders gets it done for Sacramento to bring De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio. Pretty much the same deal. What do you think of the deals that we have on the NBA trade machine? Which one do you kind of prefer to happen, though?
Well, for me, to be honest, I think Chris Paul actually would be an addition, would help Sacramento. I think right now they're lacking discipline. And when you bring it into Chris Paul, if you look at Sacramento's roster, they don't have a bad roster, as we all know.
No.
Their biggest problem is discipline, just like losing with the 4-point play. You bring in a Chris Paul, it makes the team better. That you bring in Keldon Johnson. I would hate to see Keldon Johnson leave. But, Rudy, there's one name that you mentioned, Branham, but one name you didn't mention that I think Sacramento would want now if they could get, and that's Champagne.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
That young man can play.
I think
he's a knockdown shooter, and he defends. So it kind of makes up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, I don't mean to cut you out. I think Champagne makes sense for Sacramento to get him. Again, I think if you're going to give up Julian, I don't know. I think the Spurs would balk on that kind of deal. I think he's a player they kind of want to keep around, being that you've got Harrison and him are your best 3-point shooters on the team.
He's
Spurs
a young Harrison.
You're right.
He's a young Harrison, and you can put him over in that corner in Sacramento, and he can be just as effective or more effective than Harrison was before he left Sacramento. I'm sure they're thinking about that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. I think if you're trading Julian, you may need to get somebody else in return over Fox, another young guy, because then I feel like you're giving up a whole lot. And number-wise, money-wise, it wouldn't make any sense. So I think they would have to get somebody else in return for Julian Champagne. I actually value him a little bit more than what I did at the beginning of the season. I see what he can do. So, yeah, I mean, Sacramento's going to ask for everything. They're going to ask for Castle. They're going to ask for Champagne.
Picks matter.
Yeah,
the picks matter, though. When you mention those picks, that's big, because right now we don't know which direction Sacramento is headed and what their thinking is. So those picks, when you look at these young guys they got coming out in these next few drafts, I think those picks are probably be more important than them actually getting players. I hate to say it that way because I don't want to discredit Keldon Johnson or any of those guys, but I think right now where they are, the Sacramento will want those picks.
I think so, because if you're looking at it, Derek, you're having a bad season, but when you're able to get some good lottery pick or some good first round picks, actually probably middle of the pack first round picks in a draft coming up in 2025, that's technically a pedal to the metal on the rebuild. If you are even trying to rebuild, you have Keegan Murray, you have Sabonis, you have DeMar. So technically there's really no rebound because you have a trifecta right there that will work. If you keep Chris Paul for the remainder of the season, you're right. There's nothing where to go but up for Sacramento. You've got these draft picks. I mean, I think Kevin Huerta is still there, I believe. So, I mean, you've got players there. I think it's just now adding to that roster for Sacramento. So those are the two types of deals I got for De'Aaron. Before we go to our first commercial break, which will be a quick one, another player came up that I was like, you know what? You got to kind of go get now. There's Jordan Clarkson, Valanciunas. There's a lot of guys a lot of teams are saying we may take a second rounder for them, just to kind of get them off the books. I say you kind of make maybe some of those deals if you can. But one guy's name that came up was Jakob Poeltl. And all Toronto wants is a couple of first round picks for Jakob. Now you can give away Zach Collins because that's where the money makes sense. But if Toronto wants a first, maybe one first or two, I've been saying, with Jakob and Victor, that puts Victor at the 4 where he's a lot more comfortable. You've got your great pick and roll guy. You've got your center that is going to, protect the paint. He's a very smart player. This is the front court, the new Twin Tower front court that I foresaw for the Spurs before moving from Jakob. Now, would this make sense for San Antonio?
Well, Man, that's tough because if you bring him in, you bring in Pirtle, and then you've got Victor, and you've got who's going to be your other guy? Is it going to be Harrison Barnes or is it going to be Sohan? So
I think Sohan goes to the bench.
Yeah, he would have to because you don't have any shooting out there. The spacing would be terrible with just Victor. So that would you have to put Sohan on the bench. But I would love that if we could get Pirtle. And the reason I would love him is because he's a guy that doesn't need the ball. He's a good rim runner. But even more importantly to me, he's a guy that can defend the pick and roll. And so he can, if he needs to switch out on guys, on the guards out there, he's not bad at that. And we know he's not bad around the rim. And he gives 100% every second that he's on the floor. So that would kind of ease the burden on Victor. I'm sure Victor still wants to be Defensive Player of the Year. And I think a guy like Pirtle would bring him some competition, and it would motivate Victor even more to be a more dominant defensive player. So, yeah, I would love that move if it could happen.
Yeah, and again, Toronto's they're not wanting to move on from Jakob. They consider him part of the future for the Raptors, but they kind of winked a little bit there and said, hey, for a first or a couple of firsts, we would move on from Jakob. Well, I mean, you're stacked with first round picks and second round picks. You're not going to draft every player possibly in the draft, so you may as well put them to good use and get a couple of players that will actually make sense. Hall of Famer Derek Griffin and Rudy Campos Jr. When we get back, I'm gonna have you decipher the Micah Parsons quote in the locker room because if you take away the scoreboard, nobody knows what the score is going to be. But I think he misunderstood.
I'll wait on that. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get into some Micah Parsons and Cowboys talk. Also, a cool stat for the Colorado Buffaloes that I want to show you in our scene, our basic caught off guard moment here. And then we'll end the night with our college football pick for tomorrow and the rest of the games, as well as a Paige Bucher's Caitlin Clark talk. We got a lot left to talk about. Thank you everybody for joining us here on Sweep the League. Hall of Famer Derek Griffin, Rudy Campos Jr. On the way back, we'll be talking a lot more sports. Give us a second. We'll be right back here in just a little bit.
Now we showing the proof. Came from the struggle, we living the truth.
STL Music.
Yeah, challenges come, but we here to stay. Built from the dirt, now we paving the way. Had a bad day, but
do you love sports? Are you a current or former athlete? Or maybe you're a leader in business with a passion for success? Then we want to talk to you. Join us as a guest on Sweep Unplugged. It's our 15-minute segment where we dive into inspiring stories from the world of sports and business. All you have to do is visit podmatch.com/sweeptheleaguetv and send us a message. Thanks to Podmatch, connecting has never been easier, and it's a fantastic way to grow your network. We're looking forward to having you on the show. Contact us today, and let's get you on Sweep Unplugged.
You are watching Sweep the League TV. Make sure you subscribe and catch our new videos.
Sweep the League TV with Rudy Barrett and Coach Gia. Let's get back to the live show. You are watching the best in the business.
Wendy,
the king is crowned. Wendy, king is crowned. Future of the league, and he's wearing his crown. We playing justice, playing checkers, no contest. Wendy's got the game on lock, and he's making a statement.
All right, welcome back to Sweep the League. Hall of Famer Derek Griffin, Rudy Campos Jr. Finally back off of vacation. It was a nice long holiday vacation. We still got the New Year coming up. You gonna do any fireworks, Derek? I mean, is there any fireworks gonna be over there?
No, man. I don't mess around. If you remember a few years ago, Brandon Jacobs lost a finger or two with the fireworks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't mess around. I'd rather play it safe.
I hear you completely on that, man. You got to play it safe. You definitely got to play it safe out there. So, nonetheless, we got the New Year ringing in here. Hopefully, we'll be joining you guys tomorrow as well. We'll keep you updated, but we definitely will be back Thursday, Friday for more shows. We'll see about Wednesday as well. But Derek, man, I mean, we had a Cowboy hiccup again this past weekend as they lost to the Eagles, and Stephen Jones, I guess, apparently came out. Hey, Mike, we'll discuss the Mike McCarthy thing after the Commanders game, and we still don't know what's going to happen. Yada yada. But Micah Parsons has something to say. Let's see what he had to say here.
I mean, you look at their play. I mean, they had 2 big runs and 3 good deep shots. Other than that, we made them earn it, and you take away we really take away the scoreboard. It was about 5 plays that decided this game. And you hate to say that because it's a lot of football, but the 2 deep shots to Devontae Smith and the one to A.J. Brown, and then also Devontae on that slant. For the most part, we're making them earn it. 3 yards, 2 yards, 4th and 1s, which is good football for when you're playing a team like the Eagles. But the other side is that when you play in those big teams, we understand big plays is going to happen. You understand, all right, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, some of the best guys in the league, they're going to make a big play. But you got to limit that big play margin from maybe from that 5 point to 1. You can handle 1 big play, but you can't give a team like that many big plays.
I think I was more interested in the guy laughing in the background, trying not to just go, laugh out loud comedy era. But how do you decipher that? I mean, you give up the big plays. We only gave up 3, 4, 5 big plays. And if you take those away, take the scoreboard away, then it's maybe 3 big plays. I still don't understand. I'm still trying to crack the code, Derek. I don't know if I can right now.
Can you see my hands on this picture?
Yeah, I see it.
I'm look like I'm going what the hell? That's a younger me. So let me understand this, man. So basically what he's saying, I guess this is a new form of analytics, right? Yeah. So that is 32 teams in the NFL. And I could say that about every team in the NFL. If they take away the big plays, they play great defensively, other than the big plays. So, I mean, to even say something that crazy, man, we've heard a lot of crazy stuff this year with the Cowboys, but the rationale there, I'm trying to understand it. If we, without those plays, take away those 5 plays and we outplayed them. But here's the thing. Can you take away those 5 plays? That's something you need to be doing during the game, not after the game. So to even say something so asinine, man, it just tells you that young man doesn't get it. He's a heck of a player, but he has a lot of maturing to do. And I got to be honest, 61, been around sports basically all my life. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard.
I figured you would say that because I don't get that at all. I mean, like I said, I'm still trying to decipher all that stuff because it makes 0 sense as to what Micah was talking about. I mean, you're right. You're on the defensive side of the ball. You got to stop the big plays from happening. But, I mean, I'm confused. And that goes back to what we were saying before the season started. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, Micah Parsons. One of those guys is going to have to go. They re-signed CD. They re-signed Dak. You got to say goodbye to Micah. This is getting a little out of hand because this isn't the first time he's kind of a little crazy in the Cowboys locker room or podcast or wherever. But I think it's time to say, okay, Micah, we're probably going to have to move you or let you go. He's got to be the one guy that's gone, you would think, in the offseason that's a star for the Cowboys.
He's such a good player, man, that and sometimes teams are reluctant to give up on a guy like that, but talking like that is not good for the team. That's not even good for the league, man. I mean, it's just dumb. Yeah. If we take away those 5 big plays, we win the game. First we know the game is not played in the if world.
Yeah.
And this is something, if you guys went over the scouting report like you're supposed to, and maybe you could have taken away those plays. But to say if we take away the big plays, we outplayed them. If I'm correct, wasn't the score 41-7?
Yeah.
Is that the time to be even making those kind of comments after you? In basketball, that's like losing by 60 points. To even make a statement like that after you got beat 41-7. The Eagles could say the same thing. If we took away that big play, we would have shut them out. It is what it is.
Well,
and that's what he needs to be focusing on.
Well, let me relive the game. So one of the touchdowns was an interception for a return. So you can't mess with that. That was on the offensive side. So that's already 7-0. If you take away the 5 big plays, let's give them field goals. That's 15 points. So now the score is 22-7. They still win the game. So, I mean, you're right. It makes zero sense at all. I mean, period. They 41-7. I could understand if the game was like 24-18, 24-20, if it's close like that. I can understand it. We gave up some big plays. We can't do it. But if you're trying to validate a 34-point loss,
Rudy, if you take away those 4 threes that Steph hit in the finals against France, then France outplayed the U.S.
Yeah.
But who took home the gold medal?
That would be America.
That's what people are going to remember. So you can't go back and take away those big plays after they've already happened. So to even talk like that, that's not good moving forward, man. You got 1 game left in the season, and you're supposed to be trying to go out with a bang. The way he's talking, that's not a good way to get ready to go on vacation. And it kind of makes you wonder moving forward, like you said, is this a guy that they really want to invest in for the future and give a really big contract?
Yeah, I think you still have to move on from him. You can get a player in the draft or maybe even through free agency to be on the defensive player for you. I think they probably need to move on from him. Cowboy fans don't want to hear that. But again, they still believe they go to the Super Bowl every single year. So,
I mean, why not? Why don't they want to hear it? At some point, you have to cut the cord, as they say. And I don't. Micah brings a lot of negativity to that locker room, and you know that. He had the situation with DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, he's a very vocal young man, which is not a bad thing, but certain things that you say makes it a bad thing. And it doesn't seem a lot of times when he talks that he's talking very rational. And that scares me when you're talking about a guy who's trying to secure the bag, as they say, and get a long-term deal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think they're going to have to move on from him as well because, man, I think it's time. It's time that you got to move on from him. They can sign him and they can trade him. I mean, that's still a possibility. There's a lot of teams. There was rumors of him going to possibly being traded to Detroit, possibly being traded to Pittsburgh. A lot of these teams want him. And you know what? For Detroit, it might make sense. Dan Campbell makes a lot of sense if he goes to Detroit. He's got players like Aiden Hutchinson and a lot of players on the defensive side of the ball that could definitely keep Micah in control. And Dan Campbell's a no-nonsense guy.
But can you keep him in control? A talker is a talker. If you look at the Lions just come out and play. You don't hear those guys trying to be in the media, trying to have the spotlight. And that's not something I wouldn't wish him on the Lions. I'd rather send him somewhere. Let him go down there with Caleb Williams. Go play with the Bears. He can talk all he wants. Then it's him. He's talking. If he's not talking, Caleb's talking. That's a better fit than we want in Detroit.
But wouldn't a coach like Dan Campbell, Mike Tomlin, wouldn't that be a better fit for him as in a no-nonsense coach? Just idea. Dan Quinn in Washington.
Pickens. Tell that to George Pickens. Has Mike Tomlin stopped George Pickens from being George Pickens?
No, you're right. I forgot about the whole George Pickens thing. That kid's going to go crazy there. Super crazy.
Yeah, but you can get him on a good team, man. But you have to kind of lay down the law when you bring him in. You don't want that to become a distraction. It reminds me of Draymond, some of the things he says. And then, the Buddy Hield situation. So now he's found another foreigner to bully, and it kind of reminds me of a Jordan Poole situation. You don't want to bring that kind of stuff into the locker room when you're already not playing up to your expectations, and you don't know if you're on a rebuild mode or not. So he can go to a good team, but they're going to have to lay down the law and let him know that he's there to be a part of the team, and it's not the Micah Parsons show.
100%. I agree with that. I do agree with that. We'll see what happens with Micah Parsons in the offseason. Before we get to our college football pick and our last subject of the day, Derek, I think I maybe should do this. Our cutoff guard moment here. I got that somewhere here. I got to check this out. Here it is. Cutoff guard moment with Derek Rabbit. All right, some pretty cool things here. What an absolutely historic 2 seasons for the Colorado University Buffaloes. 0-6 versus the top 25, 2-9 conference teams with at least a 500 record. Tons of smack talk to opponents and cool chains and sunglasses worn at all times. The Deion experiment, man. No more Shador. No more Travis Hunter. Shiloh's gone. The Deion experience in Colorado. I feel, and I remember telling Gio, it's over. This is his last year. Could it be his last year? Because the Colorado experience and Deion experience didn't really work for the Buffaloes, to be honest with you.
It's funny, 10 minutes before you and I went on the air, and I'm not exaggerating, 10 minutes, I got a call from an older gentleman who used to work at Gervin Center with me during my days there. And he started talking. First, we wished each other, happy holidays. I'm going to talk to him again tomorrow. But then he brought up Colorado Brigham Young. What did I think about the game? So I told him what I felt about it. For me, honestly, I was happy. As you know, I like the way Brigham Young, their style of play. Yeah. Their coach kind of reminds me of Dan Campbell. And so I like that. But as far as Deion, I thought that he was in it to win it as far as, for his sons and Travis Hunter. But I don't know, man. It's going to be hard because I know that if he gets the right offer, I believe he'll leave just like he did when he left Jackson State. Yeah. I didn't think Deion was here to be here forever. He's made the team relevant. Going into next year, they'll be relevant. But I think someone's going to come knocking at the door, and I don't think he'll be back next year. I think, a lot can happen in these next several months, and I think he'll get an offer that he won't be able to turn down, and I think he'll tell these guys, it's been nice, but see you later. Let me go get another team and tell those guys to start transferring before I get there, and I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I think it's where we're headed to. I think the Deion Sanders era in Colorado is definitely no more. We got a couple of games to pick here, Derek. So here we go. We're starting off tomorrow. Is Boise State and Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl? How are you looking at this one going? This is actually a game that I kind of figure is going to be relatively close. I like Penn State. I like Boise State. You know me, I'm an underdog type of guy. Penn State's probably the favorite in this game, and they are favored by 11.5. But you know what? I'm going to ride the Boise. I'm going to ride Genty just because the kid had a phenomenal year. He's probably pissed off he didn't win the Heisman Trophy like he should have. So I'm going to take Boise State to upset Penn State tomorrow.
I see Genty having a great game, maybe even a 200-yard game. I think it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game, but I just think Mr. Franklin has his guys playing on all cylinders right now, and it's not going to be an 11-point game. For me, it's a 3-point game. I'm going to go Penn State 36, Boise State 33.
Then we go to Wednesday. We have our first game is Texas, those Fighting Longhorns against the Sun Devils in Arizona State. This is a game I kept thinking golly, Texas, this is probably a tough game for Texas. Arizona State is a magical team, but I can't pass on Texas because they were my national championship pick. I'm going to stick with the Longhorns. I really feel they'll come out. They'll play Arizona State tough. I think it's a closer game than people expect. Give me the Texas Longhorns to beat Arizona State.
Man, last week I wanted Ohio State to lose because I'm from Michigan, but I had a good idea they would win that game against Tennessee, but I was hoping for the worst for them. In this way, I'm an Arizona State guy. I think they've been just fantastic throughout the year. But, man, I'm going to have to go with Texas. And I want the upset, Rudy, but I'm going to go with the Longhorns.
He's going with the Longhorns. Tim is going.
I want the upset. I want the Sun Devils to take down the Longhorns, but I'm going Texas.
Gotta stick with the Longhorns. Tim's going Texas as well. Then we go to the 4:00 game. Ohio State and Oregon. Can you help me out with this? Because I was so dumbfounded by noticing that Ohio State favored against Oregon, a team that has been remarkably dominant all year. And the Oregon Ducks, how is Ohio State favored in this game? I'm riding with the Ducks. I mean, they've just looked really good all year. And maybe because of the Ohio State hype and everybody talking bad about Ryan Day, screw Ryan Day, I don't like you. But I will take Oregon over Ohio State.
They're favored because a lot of people think that Oregon got a couple of breaks in the first game. And as you know, it was a very, very close game. It was anybody's game. So that's why I think they're favored. And people are still waiting on Oregon to fall apart, have that one bad game, myself included. But I don't think this is going to be the week. I just think they're going to be physically superior to Ohio State. And I think that offense is going to be good enough. I am going with the Oregon Ducks.
Yep, quack, quack. And it's the Rose Bowl. So Oregon's going to have kind of a home field advantage since, Oregon's not very far from California. We end the night with the Sugar Bowl, Notre Dame and Georgia. Gio's going to love me on this one because I normally would say Georgia, but with Carson Beck not playing in this game, I believe he declared for the NFL draft and he's sitting out, which is a huge mistake. I can fully see Notre Dame beat Georgia in this game, which is why I'm going Notre Dame to beat Georgia in this game. Give me the Fighting Irish and the chance of Rudy going across the Notre Dame sidelines and across the fans. Give me the Fighting Irish.
Newt Rockney, Eric Parsegian, Rudy, and Lou Holtz are going to be proud of me. I am taking the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I just think I never in my career keeping up with football, Rudy, have I taken Penn State and Notre Dame so much on the same weekend. But I'm keeping my streak intact this week. I'm going with the Fighting Irish. Let's go, Fighting Irish.
Yeah, man, I think I definitely like Notre Dame in this game. So, yeah, Carson Beck's not going to be playing in this game. Tim was saying he did have surgery on his arm, but he did declare for the draft, which I don't understand Carson Beck declaring for the draft. He's not ready. This draft is not. What's that?
Transfer portal, I could definitely see him doing it, but that's where he should have been going. So maybe he'll get some advice before it's too late. Transfer portal, not declaring for the draft.
No, I wouldn't have declared for the draft. Those are going to be our picks for college football. Before we go here, we're going to end the night here with another segment that we had, another Caught Off Guard segment. We're not going to play the Caught Off Guard music, but let me show you this real quick, Derek. It's a 16-second clip. Kind of something that we talked about when the night on some WNBA talk.
Who's the overall better player?
I think Paige is.
Okay, so if Paige actually was in the draft, if you're Fever, do you stay with Caitlin, or is that a real tough decision?
I think it is a tough decision.
So there you have it. Tough decision. Something that it's funny because you and I talked about this months ago. If Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers were in the same draft, who would have gone first? You and I both said Paige Bueckers would go number one. And I think it's a tough pick. but in some ways it's really not. Has your stance changed on it? Because for me, I still have Paige Buchers as the number one pick over Caitlin Clark. I think she brings more to the table than Caitlin does overall. And I just like Paige as a better player. So for me, it's still Paige number one, Caitlin two.
Pre-injury, I take Paige. I think she's more physical. Caitlin might have a little better IQ as a point guard. I think Paige, for me, is more of a scoring guard that you can also put at the point guard position. But if it was up to me, I'm taking Paige. I think she takes better, more efficient shots. I think she's tougher physically, definitely defensively than Caitlin. She gets over those screens, or when she goes underneath the screens, she's still very competitive. I don't want to take anything away from Caitlin because she had a fantastic year. Other than that, the shooting could have been the turnovers, the 5.6 turnovers has to improve. But I would take Paige. I think Paige is just a better player, more complete player.
Yeah, I think Paige is the complete player. And it's going to be kind of fun, Derek, because she's going to probably end up going number one to the Dallas Wings. And that's going to be a pretty fun little combo that they have up in Dallas. I'm kind of excited to see that with her and Ogunbowale. That's going to be a very good
Kyrie and Luka. You got Kyrie and Luka, and then you got Ogunbowale and Paige. Wow. Dallas is going to be on fire basketball-wise. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Dallas is going to be a fun team to watch for the WNBA, and I'm pretty excited. Rika did tweet out on X, I just fell to my knees. Thank you, Lord. She did that back in November when she found out Dallas won.
Hey, man, don't forget who we're talking about there. You saw her in the All-Star game lighting it up. If you look at throughout her career, all she needs is someone to run with her. A backcourt mate like this is going to be. They've already become a better team, and they haven't even hit the practice floor yet. That's with Paige. They get Paige like we know they're going. I know they're going to take her number one pick. So they've already improved the team by leaps and bounds.
I know it's going to be fun because they have Sabali as well, right? Yeah, Satu Sabali is another player there. So
who can score and who also can defend, who fights for rebounds. They're a better team. They're going to be what Indiana was this past year. You saw how Indiana improved. Expect the same thing from Dallas.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a fun team in Dallas. And the good thing is you and I are like 4.5 hours away. So maybe we can go check out a Wings game and watch this team just ball all over the WNBA. I give them a few more years before we start talking about them as being big time contenders. But yeah, we wanted to see what Paige Buchers and Caitlin Clark, who would go number one. People are pretty in consensus that Paige Buchers would go number one if it was between her and Caitlin Clark, man. It's been fun, dude, because we got back from our vacation, our nice long holiday. I'm hoping Christmas was good for you. We just kind of sat around and did nothing at the compost household and watched my daughter open every single present while I got the socks and the boxers that I normally get every single Christmas, which thank you, family, because I did need that. I needed that very bad, man. Your Christmas was good?
I told you I didn't do much, man. So that was great. I told my family I love them, but I just wanted to kind of reflect on what are my plans for 2025. I lost my mom in 2019. So it was kind of a reflection day for me. But it was a great day. I watched movies all day. Lifetime Movie Network. Thank you very much. And yeah, I had a great day. It was a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, it was a great Christmas. Enjoyed my time off with the family and got New Year's coming up, man. So we'll see. We'll make an announcement tomorrow whether we're going to be live tomorrow night. If not, we'll be back at the end of the week for sure. So we'll try to get a show in tomorrow before the New Year's. That way you can celebrate with us tomorrow with myself and Derek Irvin. We'll see what Coach Gio is up to. Maybe he'll be able to jump on with us as well. But for right now, we appreciate everybody joining us. Go to YouTube, search Sweep the League TV, be a subscriber. A lot of stuff coming up in 2025. You gotta be ready. Gotta pay attention to everything. The only way to get the notifications is to be a subscriber on YouTube. Sweep the League TV. So for Hall of Famer Derek Irvin, Rudy Campos Jr., until we sweep the league again next time, we'll see you later, knuckleheads.
Everybody have a great night. Stay safe.